You enjoying it?
I am. I am actually enjoying it for having to organise it and think about it with the team. It's actually got very relaxing now we're here. So
I think everybody's having a good time. I mean, seriously, when you put together nice food, nice wine, South Australian produce, it's pretty difficult not to enjoy yourselves.
And I think the way the tables are set up, you can experiment. So you can try different things. So I've been actually trying the wines with some of the dried fruit as well, which has been fun.
So who introduced you to your love of food? Because I know you do have a love of food.
I've seen wife. Over here. My wife really introduced me to the love of... my mother was a very good cook. And, she's not here now, so she would hit me if she heard me not include her. So, but she was from that era, you know, the Australian sort of...
meat and three veg?
Yeah. So I learnt, you know, that we had lovely food, but we didn't explore our palate much. And Merle, because Merle came from South Africa, and that Cape Town area has everything, you know, because of the trade and everything for centuries, you know, it's actually been so she just introduced me to a whole lot of stuff.
Going on from that, how fortunate are we in South Australia with all the immigrants that we've had from different countries that have brought different foods and different flavours and different types of wine, different varieties. So it's fantastic. Now, I do have something I have to ask you though, Craig. I've heard something about Craig Broman and jam, and I'm not quite sure how does that go together? I mean, we're talking about food, we're talking about fermenting. I hope you didn't ferment the jam, but what's this about you and being a jam winner?
I inherited a house that had fruit trees, and we came from interstate, so I don't think we've ever really understood how great the climate is for fruit trees until we got here. So there was a peach tree out the back of our house, and we arrived when it was in fruit, and I've never tasted peaches like it in my life. You know, you just can't find peaches.
Sweet, juicy.
You've got to practically dive into it. It was so big, you know, and we had so many one year that I thought, mate...
Not even you could eat them all?
We could not eat them all between the family, so... And giving them away. So we ended up, I made peach jam. And I think the first time, Merle, we tried it, it was too sweet. Yeah, it was really sweet. So then we put a vanilla pod with it and some lemon. And it really, really was nice.
Sweet and sour.
It was it changed the whole dynamic of it. And suddenly everybody wanted it. So we put it in the Barossa Valley show.
And?
Well, I was told later that what let me down was the Vegemite container. So if we hadn't have had...
still have Vegemite written on the outside?
No. But you can always tell a Vegemite container. Even if
every Australian house
label.
in the 70s had Vegemite glasses.
So, and that was because I was stingy. I should have given them a decent amount of jam and not been so precious. And then they said it would have been a prize-winning jam. So, anyway.
Well, speaking of being stingy, perhaps you could talk to us about our God, who is not stingy, and how that might relate to us being so lucky in what we've been provided.
Sure. Okay.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for coming tonight. It's great to have an evening like this. I know that at this time of the year with Easter and everything else, it's very, very hard to sort of try and fit in things. But thank you so much for fitting in an evening like tonight and coming out and enjoying it. I knew it would be enjoyable. It was just a matter of getting here to be able to enjoy it. Before moving to South Australia, I think I'd have to describe my wife and I as very uncultivated when it came to understanding red wine. We, unfortunately, what we went for, and Andrew will be aghast at this, we loved gooey sweet wines from northeastern Victoria. You know, the Milawa sort of wines. And that was all we were used to. But when we came to South Australia, we started to take our interstate friends and family to the wineries. And of course, they would try things. And then the winemakers, like people like Andrew, were very friendly, and they would say, well, why don't you try a red, you know, and see what you think of it. So eventually we got a taste for red wine, and particularly South Australian red wine. And now when I go interstate and I'm with people, they say, oh, you picked the wine. I think it's such an hilarious thing. But it's basically because you come from South Australia and they think you must know your wines for whatever purpose. So thank you, Andrew, for you and your winemakers for keeping on persuading us to extend our palate, because it actually worked in the end. And when it comes to cheese, Cherie, I have to say that really some experience of cheese in childhood was Kraft. And okay. And except when the baby bells started coming out, my mum had a bit of a foray into those and, whacked those into the school lunches because they were nice and easy. But coming to South Australia has been amazing for me, because we can take visitors up to somewhere like Utter Delights, 25 minutes, we're up there. Then they get to actually try the cheeses for free. So there they all are. They're amazed at that. And then we get a platter and go and sit out under the elms up there. And it's really like living like royalty. People who visit often remind you of, how thankful you should be for the place that you live in. So maybe it's the combination of people who are passionate about what they love, and so they impart that passion to you, or because they're in beautiful locations that you can go and visit. But basically, we've extended our palate because of their urgings, and we're very appreciative of that in the long run. You can read all the critiques about cheese and wine and food, and you can read the foodie column in the paper, but in the end, you have to step up and try it for yourself. And there's no other way around that. You have to do it and taste it. And that is ironic, because in the Bible there's a section in the middle called that are songs called the Psalms. And in there's one particular psalm, and it actually says this. It says, taste and see that the Lord is good. And what it's really saying, I think, is the same way that you actually go about trying to work out whether you like food and wine could possibly apply to the way that you experiment with discovering God and who He is. Taste is so important in life. I don't know whether you know this, but you've got 10,000 taste buds. They will start to dull a bit as you get older, but you've got 10,000 to start with, so it's pretty good. And 10 levels of intensity of at least 5 basic flavours. So the 5 basic flavours are sweet, salt, bitter, and sour. And the last one used to be savoury, but apparently it's umami. It's changed to umami. There's your word for the night, umami. Just use that in a conversation with people. But what that means is, if you multiply that all together, you've got 100,000 possibilities of taste inside that mouth of yours when you put something in it. And you can amplify that even further if you want by adding texture, smell, and temperature. So I think that's why winemakers have a field day when they start describing their wines. So I thought I'd give you a few to add to your collection tonight. So you could describe, not necessarily Andrew's wines, but you could describe wines as flabby, foxy, mellow, tannic, spritzig, petulant, and cloying. Cloying? I don't even know what is cloying?
Sticks in the mouth.
Okay. When you come to cheeses, basically with cheeses you can describe them in terms of texture. So you can have pillowy, dense, luscious, velvety, or if it's aroma and flavour, you can talk about it being sharp, citrusy, gamey, or downright barnyard. So I'm sure there are others besides those. But at least there's a few for you to toss around next time in your conversation with people. Now imagine for a moment if you had to try and communicate to an unborn baby in a womb some of the tastes that you had tonight. Now, I know, apart from the fact that this illustration falls down in terms of wanting to feed a baby wine, but just put that aside for a minute and run with me. How would you actually go about trying to explain to an unborn baby some of the flavours that you've got tonight? So you say, oh, look, it's a little bit like black currants. Oh, you've never tried black currants. What about a lovely slice of fresh pear? Oh, you don't know what fresh pear is. But it's bold, it's smoky. Oh, you don't know what smoky is. See, the words mean nothing unless you actually have some tasting already behind you to try and work out what those things mean. So imagine if you were to give an invitation to somebody and you said to them, look, I want you to experience something that you've never experienced before. I want you to go to the south of France, to a place like Provence, and I want you to enjoy what's there in late spring. You know, the markets, the figs, the cheeses, the wines. It's just be amazing. And the person turns around and they say to you, no, it doesn't appeal to me. I had a dodgy croissant once from a Vietnamese bakery, and it's just put me right off the French countryside. I don't want to go. You see, you'd say, what? You know, you can understand a little bit of the logic of it, but at the end of the day, you know, they're missing out on trying it for themselves. And I think that's exactly what a person is like sometimes when it comes to Christianity or God. They actually have had a really bad experience. They've had a bad treatment, perhaps, by a church or by a religion. But basically what this particular song is saying in the middle of the Bible is you've got to taste and see for yourself. You just can't go off other people's experience. It's an invitation. And the song actually promises something. It says, taste and see that the Lord is good. So it's saying, you know, if you give this a whirl, you might actually discover that God is good. Now, if you think about food, and even the food that we've had tonight, it is actually a great argument for God because it shows you the incredible diversity and range of what a creator could put together and then imbue in the people that he's created. You know, for example, if God was just pragmatic, he could have put all the nutrients that you need, if he is the creator of the world, he could have put all the nutrients you need into, I don't know, say a zucchini or a choco. Okay? Now, it could have provided you nutrition. You could have lived off it, perhaps. You know, it could have worked. But it wouldn't be very interesting to have that for the whole of your life. That's because it's not in God's nature to deliver life that way. In fact, I think what this shows you is that if there is a creator, he's in the business of making sure that you and your nourishment is actually an incredible experience, a creative experience in life. And it is one of the highest pleasures that we get to enjoy along with people. If you're enjoying tonight, arguably you could say that you're reflecting something of the Creator who's made you because you're actually enjoying the same things that he has put into this world for you to pick up. There's a strong possibility that the strategy of how we're having wine and cheese tonight and what we're learning about it could actually work when it comes to God. So what gets in the way of broadening a palate? Thankfulness. So tonight is really all about fantastic wine, superb cheeses, great people to meet who love what they do. You know, there's a lot of love firing around the room, a lot of positivity. So in 2013, there was a symposium on gratefulness in the US in Berkeley University. And they had lectures on subjects like cultivating gratitude in a consumerist society and the grateful brain. And basically what they were saying was that a society where everyone is in the pursuit of their own individual happiness cultivates a sense of entitlement in the end rather than a sense of gift. And what that means is that lack of gratitude is contagious, so it's taken up by the next generation. And conversely, people who are grateful find that the next generation following on from them, because they've experienced that, find that they are grateful in response to being able to see it. And the research that they did at this symposium and they presented showed that gratitude is essential for happiness, but it is far more than just having a feeling of being, content at the end of the day. When we accept for granted everything around us, including, say, this food and wine tonight, we begin to believe that this universe owes us something, that it should always be like this. And that failure to see life as a gift, in the end, can make us morally and spiritually bankrupt. So have a listen to this. I found this quote by Abraham Lincoln. It was his address to the nation in the US in 1863. And this is what he says. He says, "We've grown in numbers and wealth and power like no other nation has ever grown. But we have forgotten God. We have forgotten the gracious hand which has preserved us, given us peace, multiplied and enriched and strengthened us. And we have vainly imagined in the deceitfulness of our hearts that all these blessings were produced by some superior wisdom or virtue of our own." So ungrateful people usually are characterised by a great sense of their own self-importance and their arrogance often and their vanity. And these are qualities that we don't particularly like to see in ourselves or other people. Entitlement is really the core of narcissism. And it's an attitude that says, life owes me and you owe me and I deserve better than what I'm getting here. And it's a preoccupation with yourself that in the end stops you from being able to enjoy the benefits and even the benefactors in your life who are giving you some of the things. It's very hard to feel thankful when you have a sense of entitlement and self-absorption. So you certainly won't be grateful for things if you feel like, well, they should be coming to me anyway. They should have been mine anyway. So if there is an author of life out there and we fail to thank him, I think it's a little bit like plagiarism. Plagiarism is where you take somebody else's thing and you pretend that it actually was yours and it was your original idea that you came up with and you take it for yourself. And that's possibly true then, that it would limit your enjoyment of the thing that you try and enjoy because you don't go the next step to the person who actually made the thing for you to enjoy. Thankfulness says, what a great wine, what a great winemaker. And then it would say, perhaps what a great creator who imbues his creatures with the ability to be able to put all this together and present it and create it so diversely. I think just for a minute, just put this last week through a grid. Say to yourself, how has my life been lived last week? Is it a week of entitlement or is it a week of thankfulness or gratitude? It's a very helpful question to put to yourself. And that gratitude is often, grateful people often refer to their life as being blessed. I don't know whether you've noticed that, but tonight we called it Blessed Are the Wine and Cheese Makers, which is a nod to Monty Python, I know. But is it really, is it a shorthand way of just saying, these two have chosen such yummy career paths? That's the total of what it is. Or is it something more? Well, the Bible actually describes blessed this way. It's a much deeper concept. It's a multi-dimensional sort of flourishing in your life. It's a completeness and a wholeness. I think that for me, life is far from that sometimes. What I experience anyway, it doesn't feel complete often, and it doesn't feel whole. And that happens to me just with myself, handling myself, in my relationships, even with the world I'm in, my environment, my work and so on. and I'd venture to say probably with God himself. Essentially, it's the curse that we bear and that we carry around and try and keep shaking off all the time. And the Bible would say that that lack of alignment in the end is what it would call sin. Now, to be blessed it's like having a broken bone. You actually get it and the person has to break it and set it again, and then there's the potential for healing to take place. That's the sort of concept of what blessing is. So to be blessed means wholeness. I mean, that's spiritually. So there's a possibility you could know a God if he's there. It means personally with yourself, actually understanding who you are and where you fit into the world. It means relationally, being able to conduct deep, personal human relationships with other people. It means, I think, socially, actually wanting to serve other people around you. How do you get to that state of blessing? You know, that's an interesting question. The answer in the Bible would be you can't. It's actually got to come to you. It's actually got to be received by you. And Easter is a celebration of that. In the next few days, we move into the Easter period. And what that is it's a celebration that God would actually step into the world with all his blessings and actually swap over and take our curses and exchange them for blessing. And in fact, at points when you read the story of Jesus, it says that he tasted death so that we could actually taste life fully. It's a great exchange. And Jesus put it this way, he said, "Blessed is the person, the pure in heart, because they get to see God." It's that wholeness, it's that healing, it's that completeness, I guess, in all its facets. And that is so much more, at the end of the day, I think, than just a ticket to heaven, you know, and an insurance policy, which is often what people think. That's what I'm trying to do, I suppose, is just lifting the lid and just trying to prise open what might be a radically new world, perhaps, for you. There are two things that you could do with this from here tonight. The first is fairly simple. Practice gratitude. So in your life, wine, cheese, people to love, be thankful, be grateful. So over Easter, try and do that when you're coming up against things and you think, oh, you know, practice gratitude. It's a little bit like, no offence to anyone who's got teenagers here, but teenagers can sometimes be very, very difficult people to have around a house. You know, they hog the remote, they eat everything in your refrigerator, and they never thank you for providing all that stuff. Not all of them, but, you know, a fair enough sample of them that we understand this and, you know, experience it. So what's that lens that you're going to see life through? Is it one of entitlement or is it one of gratitude? That's a good thing to do over Easter when you've got a break with people. The second is a little bit more, I guess, and it's my challenge to you to broaden your palate, So like the wine and cheese tasting tonight, taste and see for yourself that God is good. Now, how do you do that? Well, you go and you find out more and taste it for yourself. So that could be go to church over Easter and see what it's all about. If you're going away for Easter, then take the story of Jesus' death and resurrection, take it away yourself and have a look at it. Experiment, you know, give it a whirl and try and extend your palate. I hope you have tonight and I hope you will in the future. Thanks.